Good night, everybody. What's going on? Welcome to Sunday night. Happy Sunday night to you. Hope you had a fabulous weekend so far and you get ready to go in there and crush it this week and make some big things happen. This is Money and Skills with Dalan and Michele, episode 5. Ooh, I didn't realize we're this far in. I don't know why it skipped me that we're this far in. 5 episodes in. It feels like we just got started. My name is Dalan Vanterpool. I'm a financial educator helping young professionals to make their money moves. And I want to toss it over to my main buddy, Michele Beatty. What's up, Michele?
Hey,
You doing
hi
good?
everyone. Yeah, great. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you're live and if you're catching the replay, thanks for catching the replay. Excited to have you here with us. I know 5 episodes, like that's huge. From like this
Yeah,
random conversation to like 5 episodes.
yeah. It really has gone by pretty quickly. I still remember. I don't know exactly what. I just remember you casually calling me. I don't even know if it was a phone call. It might have been a voice note. Like, hey, we've been talking about XYZ. We should really turn this into a series. And then I feel like 2 days later, there was like a graphic with my face on it. Like, here, this is the thing that we're doing. We're doing this. Okay, I guess when is it? All right, Sunday. Awesome. This is happening. And then here we are, five weeks into it. So I think it's been going well so far. I've gotten some good feedback. So shout out to everyone who's actually sent in feedback, whether it's a DM or instant message or comment or email or whatever it is. So shout out to everyone who's been following along with the series. I hope you've been getting massive value from that over the last couple weeks. And we're excited to give you even more of that tonight. As always, a lot of these things that we talk about here on the show come from the ongoing, when I say ongoing, the conversation that Michele and I have been having for the last 3 years. So more than that by now, I think. 'Cause
Longer
when
than
we
three
met,
years.
yeah, it's longer than that because I've been in Panama for 4.5, and we met when I was still in the BVI. So it's got to be like at least 5 years, five or more. The conversation we've been having gradually throughout the time, but this week we're talking about some stuff that spilled out of the conversation we started having this week, and I think this is going to be very interesting for a lot of you out there, particularly for the folks who have been struggling with charging higher prices, trying to negotiate salaries, feeling like they're not worth enough, or having been told that they're not worth what they think they're worth, and you're having this kind of disconnect between what you think you're worth and what people are offering you. If you're having those kind of conversations with yourself, or having those kind of conversations with the people that you don't want to be having those kind of conversations with, this episode is for you. So stick around. We got a lot of good stuff coming up for you. So I want to start this one off, Michele, with a personal story. I mentioned this to you a couple of days ago. I want to mention this because it's the personal story of how I spent years getting underpaid for no fault of but my own. Like, it's simply because I didn't understand my value. I didn't know. I wasn't aware. Even when I had hints of that the value should be more, I didn't feel comfortable charging that much. I didn't have the confidence. And this is a story of what happened, and we can hash it out afterwards. So this is a story. It's kind of like a two stories. It's the same story twice. The first one, the first time this happened, this is all from my musician days. I don't want to talk about the real corporate stuff because that's a whole other conversation. You know, people might be here watching former bosses and that kind of stuff. I'm just going to stick to the music times. So, in another life, Black TD was a musician, or kind of still is a musician, professional musician, doing gigs, rocking out on stages, all this kind of stuff, music festivals, blase, blase, good times. Now, one of the other things we used to do, me and my crew, I play saxophone, so we used to do personal serenades. So Valentine's Day, of course, was a hot day, like you're going around, and we would run around doing 20, 25, 30 different serenades in a day, everything from, island stuff, hanging from a coconut tree, playing Stevie Wonder, something ribbon in the sky, to meeting some lady in the hairdresser, and she's pissed off, but she's crying because it's romantic that her husband sent you, but she's upset because you're taking a video of her playing the saxophone in a hairdresser, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And at the time, even happy birthday, that kind of stuff, we were charging, I don't know, $35 to pop up and play a song. Right, it'll be a song or some kind of specific, maybe somebody's wedding song that they did, or they chose something, or there's, oh my gosh, I don't know, man, just make it sound sexy, just do what you got to do. So that would be like $30 to $35. Now you have to understand, somebody thinks, oh, well, great, and it's 30 to $35. You just pop it in for 2 minutes. But on the back end, we know that it's not a 2-minute thing because we have to spend the time booking the gig with you, find out where it is. We can't be late because this stuff is usually very like in the moment. So we can't be late. So I'm there 30 minutes before whatever the event or the moment is supposed to happen. I got to book time learning the song, especially if it's not something that I knew already in my kind of mental catalog. I got to download that, pay for that track if I'm using a track for it. I got to spend time learning the song, execute it, and then I got to pack up all this stuff and drive back from wherever random place you had me doing this thing to where I need to be next. So it's not 2 minutes. This could be 4 or 5 hours of work, depending on how efficient you are going through it. We were charging $35 more or less, until at some point we realized, hey, this is not sustainable and we need to be charging more. And this was the moment when I started realizing we need to be charging more. And this happened by accident. It was exciting and embarrassing at the same time. We got called for a gig to play on a mega yacht. And the mega yacht was owned by, I won't give out names, but the mega yacht was owned by one of the one of the founders of the direct marketing industry, right? Went on this yacht, super sexy yacht and everything out there. I'm talking about, I don't know if you've ever been in a mega yacht before, but mega yacht life is a whole. People don't wear shoes on these mega yachts. Like it's taboo. Like and you just got to have nice feet. Nobody has bad feet in a mega yacht. Everybody's pretty and handsome. Everybody's fit. It's just like it's this weird kind of little world when you go on some of these mega yachts. So we jump on there, and when the owner of the yacht is coming up, just about all the crew except the captain jumps off the boat and lines up along the dock to salute this guy. And when we got called for the gig, it was a last minute thing. They had a dinner going on. They said, hey, this guy needs some music. Or contacts at the resort that they were staying at, called us up and said, hey, look, can you come play some music? These guys are loaded, so feel free to, charge a proper price, especially since it's last minute. And we were like, oh, okay, we're about to go in. We charged the biggest amount that we had ever charged yet for that kind of gig. And we thought we were doing something. I remember specifically, we charged $800. Woo! We were like, boy, we're going to go home rolling tonight, $400 a person. It's going to be lit. We're doing something. We did the gig. And by the time we were done playing everything from Frank Sinatra to Bob Marley to Ella Fitzgerald, John Coltrane, Andrea Bocelli, all in the same set, we ended off with the prayer. I mean, these people were like literal tears were falling from the music that we played. And then, they paid us and they gave us a separate envelope. I heard the owner of the yacht say, take care of these guys. They gave us the $800 for the invoice that we gave them. And then they gave us a tip of $700. Now, it was a kind of surreal moment. I remember sitting there on the dock waiting for our tiny boat to take us back home to Gilligan's Island style. And we're thinking to ourselves, first it was like, man, we just got a $700 tip. Then it was like, wait a minute, $700. Wait a minute. If they were willing to pay us as a tip just about $100 short of what we charged them in the first place, we clearly didn't price this correctly. We clearly undercharged. We clearly didn't understand our value, right? Or we knew the value and we were afraid to write that number and say the words and call for that amount, that dollar amount that we want to get paid. So that was a real eye-opening moment for us. And from that point on, we started charging more for what we were doing. We started, and you're charging more, but we started upping the professionalism and the value of what we wanted to do as well. Just started moving a whole lot differently. And you just get launched into this whole other ball game. You're done doing happy birthday and Valentine's things for $35. If you do it at all, $150, man. You want a minute and a half of my time? Well, this is what it is. It's out of that. If you can't pay that kind of money, I might as well just sit at home and practice until I can do the $1,000 gig or $1,200 gig. So I give that example just to show that there are practical times in our lives where people will see the value in you. I don't mean to get preachy here on a Sunday night, but people will see the value in what you're doing a lot of times a long time before you see it. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So anybody listening to this tonight, I want to just use that as a backdrop here for the conversation we're about to have, in that, yes, one, you need to start seeing the value in what you have and being willing to call the bigger numbers and ask for more. But at the same time, right, this isn't a situation, you might have, I know it's Sunday night, some of y'all might have been in some bad church where they just said, name it and claim it. Sorry. This is not that situation. You don't just go out there and say, I'm worth $1 million or I'm worth $100,000. And then all of a sudden the direct transfer, arrives. No, you actually have to start providing that amount of value to the market. You have to start communicating that value and packaging it and learning how to tell your story in the right way to make sure you're presenting yourself as somebody that can really deliver those kinds of results. So one of the things we talked about yesterday, Michelle, was this idea of people having the value, like you know what you're doing, but we are not used to communicating it, and we don't have the right formats to communicate it. For example, when you're going to do a high ticket sale, facts tell and stories sell. Right? People don't want to know the people. I mean, they want to know, but they don't really want to get. What's going to close the deal is not the technicalities of your certification and this and that. That's all good. What they want to see is some case studies. Give me an example of when you took somebody from point A to point B and they were able to do it faster and more efficiently and more profitably than with anybody else they could have done it with. Show me an example of that. We can get into the nitty gritty details of what but explain to me in detail, with the case studies, how you did that. So that's one of the things I want to lead off with tonight, in that if you're thinking about upping or increasing your value and trying to show that, really start thinking in terms of case studies. You want to be able to demonstrate to people where you've done these things that give you the so-called value that you say that you have. So that's the initial backdrop to this stuff. And with that, I want to jump into a couple of tips. And this is from a podcast episode I did called "Oh My God" or "OMG, You're Amazing," for free. Right. And the backdrop of that was, again, in the music world, you see this all over the place. You ever had a situation where people say, "Oh my gosh, we got to have you speak at our event," or we'd love to work with you. Just like, "You're so amazing. We've been following you on LinkedIn, and your Twitter feed is fire, and the stuff you've been putting out on Instagram. My gosh, golly gee, wow! If you're putting that out there for free, I can't even imagine what you do if you were to really come and just deliver that kind of value to our audience. Could you come and speak at our event? It's this time, it's that date. What's your budget?" I'm sorry? It's about your budget. Well, we didn't really have a budget. What do you mean you didn't have a budget? Okay, my price is $1 billion. Oh, that's too much. Oh, so there is a budget. It's just less than 1 billion. Great. Back to my original question. What's your budget? So when you start having these kind of conversations where people are super impressed with you, but they don't want to pay, that's when you got to start learning how to negotiate and know how to maneuver these situations until you get to the place where people don't bother even talking to you if they don't have a budget, right? But for those of us who are in the in-between phase where you're either not getting paid or you want to get paid more, these are some things that I think can help you. And we'll put these in the show notes and everything so you can have these. I'm going to rock through them really quick, Michelle. Feel free to cut me off or interject at any time if you think one of these needs more clarification, if you got something to jump in with. So
Okay.
At the top of it, I think there's a mindset shift that has to happen, right? In terms of understanding what it is you're trying to get out of the value that you're putting out there. What are you trying to get out of this deal? Are you here for the likes? And be honest, are you here just for the likes and the followers? Are you just trying to get attention? You just want some company. You're lonely. You want to be able to. You're sitting at home bored, and you want to be able to send a tweet, and people tweet back, and you feel special because people are tweeting with you or whatever it is. Or are you to people's lives through your product or service? That's something you really got to separate. And I say this jokingly, but it's a really serious thing, because if you go into this saying you want to go for the money and this and that, but what you really just want is the likes and followers, you're not going to have the drive to go through and get, structure the things you need to do. So be honest with yourself. But for those of us who really are here to get the money and get this money and skills thing popping off, here are some things to do. One, all right, if you're going to start monetizing you, all right, and there's actually, as I mentioned, this is a book I want to get that I think Cody Sanchez, I keep on mentioning Cody. I saw her mention the book. Yeah, I mentioned it last episode. This is a book that I saw her in a post. I got to get the book. It was called The Startup of You. I'll find the name of the author. The Startup of You. I went to get that. I got it on my list.
Okay, we'll add it to the show notes for a reference point.
Yeah, I haven't read this yet, but from what I've heard about it, it's a really good one. I gotta start. I gotta get that this week and check it out. So if you're gonna start monetizing you, one of the first things you need to start doing is focus on solving a specific problem or a specific set of problems for your niche. It's hard to charge a high price as a generalist, right? And I give the example of somebody where, look, your mom or your dad, somebody you really love is having, I don't know, they're having heart trouble. And you go to the hospital and they present you two options. You have this guy here and they say, look, he's a great doctor. He does a lot of stuff. He's anything we need, he always takes care of it. And then they give you the other doctor. This guy does hearts. That's all he does, hearts. He studied hearts. He specifically does hearts. He's had 1,000 heart cases that he saved. He doesn't do feet. He doesn't do ankles. He just does hearts. Who you want to go with? You're probably going to pick the heart guy in a serious situation. And it's not that the general guy is bad. It's just that when it comes to general guy or girl is bad, it's just when it comes to high value situations and big money is on the table, people want to know that they're rocking with the person who can get the specific result that they're going after. So if you want to charge more money, you're going to have to narrow down a bit or a lot and make it clear specifically what you do for who and in what context. You got to niche that down and start solving some specific problems. The second thing is a position.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like, I just want to tie this in. Last week we talked about niches, right?
Yep.
And bringing it all together. And then I love that you kicked it off with mindset and understanding your stance. Mm-hmm. So that's so important, especially when you are monetizing it and you have to decide, because the emotional part of it, of the dedication of the journey, it comes out with what you're talking about now when you're monetizing. You need to make sure that you understand the emotion within yourself that this journey is going to bring out. Because if you're going to be that niche person, you're going to have to dig deeper than what you're currently digging to make sure that you are giving that to your audience. You are delivering what is the saying? Over deliver. There's a little quote, but you're over delivering.
Over deliver.
That's it. Thank you. Under promise, over deliver.
That's what I'm here for.
So it's like, what does that look like and the journey of it? And it's just like, as you're listening to the great tips and insight that Dalan is sharing right now, that he's ready to like kick off and go into even further, I want everyone to think about the emotional part that's tied to it within yourself, the ebbs and flows, the different things that you're going to go through when you're figuring out how you're going to share that, how far you're going to go with it. And if it is just for like, are you okay with a competitor doing the same thing and they're getting paid for it? What emotional roller coaster is that going to go? If it's really a pay it forward community service spending time, that's going to also come out in how you deliver your content. Yep. So be very clear in your intention. Are you going for the money? Whatever your reason, that's your reason. That's not up for debate. If you're perfecting yourself as a SME or a niche or whatever, what does that look like? And then also, I think when it comes down to it, it's like, are you okay with the outcomes of what you're putting out? Because sometimes well, I'm just, air quote, I'm just going to do this. Mm-hmm. What does that look like for you? Because go ahead, Dalan, because you have great points. But I just want, as anyone's listening to the replay or tuning in tonight, I want them to think about that as they're processing what you're saying, because that's the level of accountability that they're setting their accountability bar for.
Yeah, and I think the emotional side of it is crucial, because as you go into this, the funny thing, I was watching something this afternoon, and they mentioned a quote from Gary Vee where he said, paraphrasing, he said, if nobody's telling you no, you're too cheap. And I thought about that, and I was like, well, that's an interesting point, because that's something you have to think, you have to be ready to contend with here as well. When you're not charging a high price and you're just kind of going middle of the road, whatever it is, it's a nice, comfortable space. But emotionally, you have to be ready to even get that out of your mouth, $10,000 for this hour. Like, this is just, it's a besides just typing, it's an emotional experience being able to ask for more money than you've ever asked for before. And it's also an emotional experience getting that big fat hell no the first couple of times. Who do you think you are? You got to be ready for those kind of comments as well, and be ready to know that those things are not going to shake you to the point of abandoning the mission that you're on. So you got to be ready for that as well. For example, right now, my job, I don't say the first time, but this is the first time I've been this deep in sales in a market that I'm not familiar with. I don't have that much of a warm audience with. So I'm in my day job right now. I'm doing some hard sales. I'm calling up folks, talking to high level organizations, governments, and all this kind of stuff. And you get used to, I had to learn some resilience. I had to get coached by some of the higher ups, and like, man, this is all part of the process. People are going to tell you no 7 times. And then a year later, all of a sudden they're going to tell you yes, as if they didn't just tell you no 7 times. So you got to be ready for that kind of stuff as you try to go into this whole thing about knowing your value and asking for more and that kind of thing. It's a whole process of becoming a better you. If you want people to pay you more, you got to become a better you as well. They're not going to pay the you right now as much money as you think you deserve. You have to become that $100,000, $1 million person. as well. So you got to do some growing, all of us. So speaking of which, you want to position yourself. This is the second tip I want to offer: is positioning yourself as a professional. And a lot of times, and this is speaking from the nomad life person here, a lot of times positioning yourself as a professional may mean moving away from your home circle, your hometown. When I say it might be a physical move, like me, I've packed up and moved across the world a couple of times, or it may just mean marketing your services not to family and friends, but marketing it to people who are not as familiar with you, who are going to see you based on your work, not based on, oh, I know Michele from Sunday school. I know Michele from we were growing up in high school, whatever it is. We were in the same class. You got to market to people who are only seeing the work and the results that you're able to put out there. So step away from it and position yourself as the professional, right? The third thing is, as we kind of touched on already, is you got to be good. You can't go around. There's no, I don't know how to say this to you. Like, you got to put in, you have to put in the work. You have to put in more work than all the people who are only charging average prices. You can't go around charging a premium and not delivering premium work. There has to be an actual reason why I would pay you more than other. Can you do it faster? Do you do it better? Is the experience working with you more enjoyable? Like, what is it that's justifying this premium that you have? All right. So you really want to go in there and put in the work to make sure that you are better than the average person, a lot better than the average person. And Michele might talk about this as well. Consider getting certified in that field, because yes, you can say, take my word for it. You have your case studies and that kind of stuff. But depending on what the area is, for example, I know, Michele, you got the PMP, project management professional. Am I saying this correctly?
Yes,
right?
You are.
You got the PMP certification recently. And I think that goes a long way in giving you that external certification that is not just your word for it, but is some other generic, universally evaluated organization saying, yes, you have these skills.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth one, really quick, is scarcity. We had, and I go back to my music days with this stuff, because it was just such an easy, direct way of seeing how this stuff plays out. You got to be more selective about how accessible you are, and about the gigs that you will take, the jobs that you will do. If you want to start just showing like your worth, think about the people that pay a lot of money. Think about the people that get paid. They're not all over the place. You don't see Beyonce at every single random concert. You don't see, you don't see the experts who are really, really high paid. Every time a door is open, they just take it. No, you gotta be willing to walk away from some stuff. You may have to be walking away from some bigger numbers than you ever thought. I mean, for when we were playing music, for my band to get to the point where we were paid $4,000 and $5,000, we had to walk away from the $2,000 offer. We had to walk away from the $3,000 offer. Now, mind you, we were used to getting paid $800, but to make that jump from $800 to $5,000, we had to be able to say, you know what? No, that's not enough. We'll skip this one. So you got to be able to have that scarcity, so that when people do see you, if we did the times we did put on a concert, and for people, like, tickets are selling out overnight, in a week, a couple of days. Why? Because they don't see you all the time, right? You're always in a mega yacht, you're on a private island, wherever it is. So when you do something else that's more accessible, people are ready to pay that premium and make it happen right away. The fifth one I would say, and you might speak to this as well, because you're from your experiences in job searches and different things, is researching the market and assessing your skills from a knowledgeable third party. Like, you really want to figure out, not just know your worth, or not just know that you're worthy, or whatever generic kind of esoteric way you want, but no, you actually want to put some dollar value to it. Like, know how much you're actually worth, like in terms of dollars. What is the market value for what you're offering for your services right now, for people who are in your niche? I heard Coach Michael Burt one time, he said, the problem out here, this is how he thought, he was a basketball coach. He said, the problem out here is there's too many people out there where their self-appraisal is so much higher than their market value. That's a problem. People out here are frustrated because they're not getting the results, they're not getting paid what they think they do. Yeah, because your self-appraisal is up here, but your actual market value, your actual dollar market value is kind of down here. You got the confidence, but you might not really have the competence just yet. So you got to try to close that gap. And like the market value, the market is the market. They're going to choose. They can go to somebody else. So it's up to you to up your competence and develop the competence, do what you have to do to close that gap. The
Yep,
seventh one,
competence builds confidence.
exactly, and that comes through practice, just doing it over and over and over. You're not going to feel as confident on the first or fifth or 10th time doing something or working with a client and trying to get this result as you will feel on the 100th time, right? So by the time you get the 100th time, hopefully you feel more comfortable asking for the big money. The next one I would say is increasing the volume. And when I say volume, I'm not talking necessarily just about it goes both ways. The volume in terms of like the quantity and also just like the sound. Like you want to choose a channel where you can showcase your expertise. Now, fortunately, in 2022, we have a whole bunch of different options. If you want to blog, if you want a podcast, if you want a YouTube, you want to LinkedIn Live, you want to Twitter space it out, you want to write a book, whatever it is, you want to choose one of these channels. And I say one because I really do mean one, right? There's a whole bunch of them out there. I'm kind of preaching to myself. And yes, you can get distracted, want to be all over the place, but you at least want to have one main one. I'm not saying you can't, do things other places, but your audience needs to know where church is. Where will you build your church? Are you building your church on Twitter? Are you building your church on LinkedIn? Yes, you might have all these other things and whatever it is, but where is the place that your audience knows that they're going to meet you and you're going to deliver the most amount of free value, controlled amount of free value. And the way I think of it is in terms of how much to give away for free versus how much where does it cross over into the paid. I think you want to give so much quality in the free version of it to where people are like, dang, if she's willing to say that for free, I can't imagine what she's going to tell me in the paid version. I've got to buy that product. I've got to buy that course. I've got to hire her. I got to sit down and really, if this is what she's giving away on Instagram Live, I can't imagine what the group session is or the one-on-one session. Oh my gosh. That's where you want to get to that point, where people are like, man, I wish that, not I wish, but I would definitely have paid for that information that they just shared. You want to make them feel guilty for consuming what you just shared with them. And they got to feel like, dang, I paid for some stuff before and it wasn't that good. That was some good stuff. That's where you're getting to that little, you're getting the right amount of rub in there when you want to move it over. The last
guilty or inspired.
Guilty or inspired. Exactly. I like guilty. Make them feel good. Make them feel bad. Make them feel. But see, this is why I like you, Michele. You're here to like be, offer the niceness to all my gritty preferences of this stuff. Yeah, inspired. Guilty. Inspired. It's fine. The last one comes from someone I respect a lot in the I guess, personal development industry, so to speak, but Brendon Burchard. The thing I like about Brendon Burchard is he's very methodical. And if you look at Brendon's story, he came out of that Tony Robbins camp and so on, getting his training and cutting his teeth. But interestingly, he was the guy after Tony comes out and does the rah, 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 and walking on coals and walking on water like Jesus and all the stuff that you do, all that kind of stuff. Brendon was the guy during the interior sessions that you don't see all the time. He's the one actually explaining to you step by step how you're going to get these things done and, date with destiny, all this fancy stuff. He's the one giving the actual details and training you. My pet peeve with a lot of motivational speakers and personal development speakers and all these people dropping the 60-second reels and got 100,000 followers of 60-second versions of the most vague advice you've ever heard in your life is that one, it's super vague. Two, they're there to get you hyped and motivated and everything. But by the time you come down off the high, you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to change my life. How do I do it? You can't find them. They're off to the next gig. They're recording the next Instagram reel. They're at the next random event. They're not there sticking it through with you to actually help you figure out step by step what you need to do for the next year. They're just dropping bombs, getting you excited and moving on to the next thing where they can, get paid a lot of times. And not all of them, but that's the problem with just like the motivational side of it. And I have nothing against motivation. You need it sometimes, but then you also need the people like a Brendon who are more methodical in putting out steps to show you how to get these things done. So check out Brendon Burchard if you're not following him. He's not the most thrilling, exciting, animated, crazy person, but if you want some results and you want to know like the more methodical way of getting things done, definitely somebody to check out. And one of the things he put out in one of his books is called this concept of prolific quality output. And it goes back to the thing we said before about choosing a channel. You want to have one avenue where you are putting out content. If you are If writing is your thing, you want to have a large quantity of high quality information that you're putting out there in that format. If it's YouTube, fine. If you're a video person, we want to know where is your one area where you have a prolific amount of quality output that's demonstrable and people can see for what you're doing. So those are a couple of things I would say as you're moving toward monetizing you and increasing your value and that kind of stuff, start thinking about those things. Now, it's not a cop out, but go ahead.
So for those that might perceive themselves as not at their definition of quality,
Mhm.
embrace consistency
Yeah.
until you feel you are delivering your level of quality of what you perceive to be quality, not based off of someone else because they might say it's fantastic, but you know your level of excellence, right?
Yeah.
So most high achievers tune into what we're doing. So we're talking to high achievers. So therefore, your level of excellence is high. So if you are on the fence about whether or not it's something you should do, or you haven't done it enough from your perception, or you just don't have enough receipts, as we have talked about in previous episodes, just commit to being consistent for 30 days, being consistent for, like start with 30 days. Do something every day for 30 days. If it's one comment where you're adding to someone that you like, like he was just saying about Brendon, okay, add a comment to Brendon stuff. Share your knowledge with other people. Make one comment, make a quote, share a statistic, give a little bio about that. If you're not into audio, if you're not into video, do audio. There's a lot of audio options. There's a lot of text options, but also video. Video is a thing. So figure out what that is for you and then make that happen, but be consistent with your efforts because that's what contributes to making great. So this is a reminder because like high achievers are what listens and follows us. So this is a reminder for you to be consistent.
Yeah, and the irony of the thing is, even when you think you're not putting out high quality information or content or whatever it is, the fact that you're consistent with it, it does this kind of crazy mind trick. Like if you're the person who's consistently talking about X thing in whatever niche, it after a while with the consistency, it starts being perceived as high quality. You ever had that happen? Like, well, it's just like somebody's. One, because you're doing it more consistently and you actually are increasing, getting better. But you just become known as the source for this thing because you're always, even if there's somebody who knows more, but they're kind of sporadic, they don't show up sometimes, they have little spurts, they drop a couple things here and there, but you're just always there, just kind of slow and steady, constantly putting out something useful, something useful, something useful, something useful. Eventually, people are like, man, this person here. Let me send them a DM. Let me ask them a question because it seems that they're always here. They're always putting out something. They're always thinking. They're always researching. They're always playing in this sandbox. Let me ask them a question. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider. Don't let the fact that your highest quality that you can do is not as amazing or whatever as the next person cripple you from doing what you got to do to get started.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of fast food restaurants out there. So everyone does it. All of it, people think it's impeccable, whatever that is for you, and they're all doing their same thing. So another thing with consistency, if consistency could be a challenge for you for whatever reason, make sure that you get creative with it. So give yourself challenges. Even this is a form of creativity for Dalan and I doing a live podcast. We know we needed to be out there. We needed to come up with consistent content. So this is an example of switching it up, but we're still sharing our expertise. He's giving the money education. I'm giving the skills education. So this is one way to be creative in addition to what we're already doing in other ways. So like for me, I have different narratives. I moved to seasons for my podcast. So I'm not committed to every week, but I'm committed to seasons that deliver a different message each season. They have a different focus each season. So one that keeps me learning in a new way, that keeps me engaged in a new way, but I'm also consistent with getting, because you're going to look for the seasons. Like, okay, Michele, where's your season? Every quarter, you're going to get a season. So what is it that time? So, Dalan, it is what it is.
And shout out to Michele for dragging me onto the internet because trust me, we've been through it. She's dropped the hints like, hey, you need to do some video stuff. I'm like, Michele, I'm a podcaster. I don't got time with this. I got time to be putting on makeup and lights and all. I don't want to do it. So this is the perfect example of me looking at YouTube and oh my God, I'm not gonna look as good as whoever insert X famous YouTuber or X famous financial educator out there. I'm not gonna look as cool or whatever it is. But you know, the funny thing is when I went back and I looked at where a lot of the people I respect now started, like their initial videos, and I heard one of them say, like, people will look at their videos now and be like, oh my gosh, I can never be that good. But the funny thing is, even where they're starting now is already light years better than where that person started. You know what I mean? Like what you think is trash, if you really talk to the people you admire, they might be like, look at my first video. You want to see trash? Let me show you trash. Uh, so that shout out to Michele for dragging me on here to the internet and trying to be more consistent and doing big things. Thank you, Michele. If I haven't said it all series, thank you for getting me out of my comfort zone. I still don't like it, but I'm here.
Well, thank you for taking the journey. So, do you have any more points to share, sir?
Yeah, just the last thing I would say, and again, this is not a cop out, but you know what I mean, I'm not shy about asking for the money and just going after that bag. However, I think there are some legitimate situations where people don't have the budget or don't have the money to pay you in cash what you might be worth. But I think there's some ways where you can still work the deal to where you're getting enough value, not necessarily hard cash, but you're getting enough value to compensate for what you're trying to do. So for example, I've had situations where someone says to me, oh, well, you know, we don't have $1,500 or $2,000 to pay you. I say, okay, cool. Let's do $1,000 in cash and a 2-minute video testimonial with you singing my praises about how amazing I am at doing this. And you give me the rights to use that for future promotional things. The funny part is the 2-minute video will lead to other $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 gigs. So the 2-minute video is actually worth more than if they had given me the $500 extra that I was asking for. So start thinking about that kind of stuff. So I've had those kind of situations before where you say, look, give me a formal written or video recommendation that I can use. Or maybe you say to people, look, cover my travel costs to come out and speak at whatever event it is. So you cover travel and food and whatever it is. I'll come out there and rock it out. And in that kind of case, what I would do is try to line up something else. If I'm going to be, if they're getting me there, okay, I'll come on the Friday, book me to leave on the Sunday. Because on Saturday, I'm going to try to find something else that's going to get me paid in cash for what I'm trying to do. Or if you have another product you want to offer, if you have a book, okay, cool. Give me the right to sell my book to the audience or whatever you're trying to do. The other one that's really cool that I've been using very successfully is bringing people into your fold by sending a direct invitation to people's mailing list. So it's one thing if you go do the event, but if you can actually get the permission for them to send a direct marketing email after the email, it could be a summary after the event or whatever it is, it could be a summary of what you did or something to get them into your funnel, get them into your ecosystem, that can be extremely valuable as well. And the last one I would say is, again, always trying to have stuff that you can use to book the next gig, to get to the next check. If you're doing something, especially if it's something public, like a speaking engagement or a workshop or whatever it is, try to find a way, if they can't pay you in cash, try to find a way to do this anyway, to get a professionally recorded video of whatever you did that you can use. Because video evidence, as Michele said, video is so hot right now. You can tell somebody what you did all day, but when they see those visuals that highlight real rocking across the screen of you doing what you have to do, it's amazingly powerful. So those are the tips I would share. If you're trying to monetize you and get your value up and get to a closer place where numerically or dollar wise what your value is, and also consider those extras for the situations where the cash is not available, and you want to make sure you can still get value exchange for what you're putting out there on the table.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you, Dalan, for sharing those tips. I think they're awesome. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a skills assessment. So, assessing your skills. So when you are valuing yourself, not beyond just, your value, but valuing your skills when you're preparing for salary negotiation, you're searching for the next job, or you're going for a promotion, when you've already done your budget of what you need, right? So you've done the pre-work to know what type of salary is what you want. Just not, oh, that sounds good or that looks good. You done your own personal financial assessment of what you're planning for and things of that nature. So that's one. And then two, you have gone to salary.com, Glassdoor, all these different salaries websites, and researched like what the industry is paying for your role by what you're doing, by where you live, things of that, various demographics.
Yeah.
So another thing to do is, and I found some really great resources, and I'm happy to share them with you all this evening. So one, when you find the job that you want and you're trying to define your value, there's a couple of things to keep in mind when you're assessing your skills. And so I found this great article through PayScale, and I thought it was really insightful. And they talked about 4 different things. One, the skills that you have, that you're researching, that you're adding value to, is it essential, or is your skill set essential to what you're looking for?
Mm-hmm.
So is it in need? Is it in demand? Is it applicable? Is it something that they have to have it in order to accomplish the goals in which they're hiring you for, the KPIs and things of that nature? Right. Is it useful for the role? Is it something that you're going to be useful, or is it just a fun fact? I mean, a lot of us have the fun fact skills, right? So I can do this, I can do that, but is it applicable to the role in which you're applying for? Is it applicable to what you will be doing? What does that mean? And then also they talk about assumed for the role. So what do you have versus that they think will maybe not be needed right now, but 6 to 9 months from now or a year from now, in the planning process, what is going to be needed, and do you have it? And that's a good time to also assess like your transferable skills, right? So your transferable skills and how that applies to that. If you're going from one industry to another industry, what are those transferable skills? What are skills that you used in a previous role that you probably never thought would be helpful, but it's coming back to serve you well now? Because you always want to add value to your conversations. People are looking for you to make sure that from a project management perspective, you want it to be seamless, right? You want seamless process. Doesn't always happen seamless, but that is the goal majority of the time. So in doing that, we talked about this last week. We talked about knowing your niche, being a SME. What do SMEs do? You're detectives, you're sleuths, right? You're looking to uncover something, right? You're looking to give the connector, you're looking to share the information, you're connecting the why, you're connecting missing information, you're uncovering things that are needed. So these are all of these aspects follow under assumed role. And then what's irrelevant? Just because you're amazing at something, it's almost like, I don't know, like you go to a Spanish country, you're in Panama, but you speak nothing but French.
Yeah.
That's not really going to serve you well. It's fantastic, right, that you speak French, but we speak Spanish here. So how is that going to work for you? So it's like, that comes back to the emotion part. Like you see yourself as like grand, right? Like I have these certifications, I do this, I do that. And that's wonderful. Like kudos, you're a high achiever. There's no question that you're great, right? But at the same time, let's give an honest assessment at what is relevant to what you want and how is that going to be. And then another thing, it's like, speaking of, this another twist, but I'm really big on addressing the emotion that's tied to that. When it comes down to how you view yourself, when it comes to you being, this is a separate piece, being relevant to irrelevant, don't let anyone deter you from what is relevant. That's a valuable skill set. Whether your leadership sees it as value or not, you know the value you bring to the table. And you, within yourself, become determined to showcase that. You're not showcasing it to prove them right or wrong. You're showcasing it to prove yourself right and to build your own receipts on what it is that you are able to do. You're creating an aha moment for someone else, but you're confirming within yourself the skills and abilities that you have.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important to the kind of point I was saying before, and you have those channels where you're showcasing what you do, not just to your job or to that particular manager or whatever it is. When you're showcasing it for the world, for the industry, for whoever is on LinkedIn, because they might not think it's valuable, but somebody else out there might see what you're doing and recognize and think that and see the value in it. So it's not just about that specific case. You're putting it out there for other people to see. Another one that you mentioned a couple of seconds ago that I didn't think about before was them thinking about where were your skills. I phrase it differently, but where will people see your skills as valuable 9 months from now? Like what's the future value of that skill that you have. And I heard that and I was like, oh, okay, so this is kind of like, what is asking yourself, what is the shelf life of this skill that you say you have? Like, yes, it's good now, but are we going to need it? Is it still going to be relevant 6 months from now, 9 months from now? So do we need to sign you up for $100,000 1-year contract when in 6 months, something's going to move on and all of a sudden the thing you have won't be worth as much? I never thought about that before, but that's definitely something for anyone listening to think about. What is the shelf life of these skills that you say you have?
That's true. And then they always say, generally speaking, history repeats itself. So you need to have I strongly suggest you have your own lessons learned logs, right? Of what you learned from the different skills that you've acquired over the years, whether it's 5 years ago or now. You're still building upon your skill set in each role that you have, each project that you participate on, or, like you're saying, you're cold calling now, right? Or with what you're building within your current role. Well, you didn't just start making those sales calls. You're not new to this. There's other experiences that add it to you being able to be what seems to be effortless when you're having these communications, this is when the soft skills kick in, right? So it's like that the confidence building came, understanding your industry, understanding your product, being able to tell the story, being able to connect, understanding trigger points, understanding the why, connecting to the why, sitting on the why, blowing air into the why to get them engaged in the conversation. All of these aspects of, like, for example, cold calling, that takes time to cultivate, to understand, and to navigate with ease. And so I just say that to say, like, understand that nothing you do, even in the moment, well, I can't say nothing. There's always something that could come back later that can help you. If it's just getting someone to buy into a message, you can relate. Everything falls into your arsenal of relatability when you're sharing information and things of that nature. But another thing that I wanted to break down, and I found this article through Monster, which I thought was good too, when you're assessing your skills, you're breaking down, you're looking at it like, is this the right fit for me? And why, someone gives you a job. I would say my favorite jobs I've had were ones I never thought industries that I never thought I'd be interested in. But when I get into the role, I love them. Like, I'm like, I should have been doing this a long time ago. Like, I really do enjoy them. So, or I have in the past. And it's like, okay, so one thing I'm like, first, be open to something different that you might not have felt you would be your industry of choice, right? So that's one. And then two, I would say, here are the things that they have. Reflect on the job description, which I think is key, right? Don't just discount it because it might not be all bells and whistles. There could be something really in there that might be great for you. So think about it. I'm zeroing on the soft skills. We kind of talked about that a little bit ago, just a few moments ago. What do you need? And do you have skills? So I feel like soft skills is something, we're always focusing on some skills, but I think especially navigating the pandemic and just hybrid schedules and remote, you really got to figure out, like, I bet some people are using more emojis than they ever have before to make sure.
Trying to communicate,
making sure the emotion, the sentiment is coming across, and it's not like, well, what do they mean? They just said on the way, or I don't know. But there was like, really, I'm multitasking and I'm giving you an answer. And I think we were like that before now, but even more now, it's like there's a higher sensitivity to ensuring that communication is there. But that also applies when you're assessing your skills for a role. Do you have the soft skills that is needed? Because that goes to a very traditional sentiment of foundation of teaching, of educating people of, you can have the knowledge to do it, right? But are people going to listen to you? Are you kind? Are you kind? Yeah.
The emoji thing just made me laugh because and the whole idea of trying to humanize so much of this digital communication that we have to do. I remember I sent 1 or 2 emails last week to different people, not necessarily for my day job, but different projects and stuff. And I literally said, I don't know if it was the beginning or the end of the email, like, asterisk, I am really busy right now, but I want to answer you as quickly as possible because I know this is urgent. I am not about to type in complete sentences, but don't read anything into the fact that I'm going to sound abrupt. I am not angry. I'm just trying to answer you very quickly. Like, it's just one of those, and again, because it's somebody who doesn't know you very well, you don't want to come to the email like, oh my gosh, okay, that was he was rude. He didn't have time to type like, no. I'm being abrupt intentionally because I want to be succinct really quickly. So yes, number one. Two, no, this, that. I'm not angry at all. I'm just busy. One of those kind of things. I found I had to do a lot, and just to people who don't really know you, or just even people who do know you, like, listen, just over communicate and over clarify to people what's happening right now. Oh, I'm typing on my phone and I'm about to walk into a place where I'm not going to have signal. Therefore, I'm about to be really short with you. But it's not that I'm angry.
Yeah. And I feel like also when you're communicating with people, one, you have to be patient. I don't care wherever. But I think sometimes you got to sometimes, like you're saying, be willing to over communicate. Explain. I'm not saying send a thesis, but just don't ask a question. Take the time to answer them versus yes, no. If it's warranted for more than a yes, no. If they're trying to understand the why behind something, just we're all going to be a novice at something. Even though our moment being a novice could be very short, for whatever reason, we all need people to be patient with us and explain things sometimes. So
or know when an email isn't it's not going to work. Know when the response that you need to give is, when can we talk? I've had a couple of managers have done that, and it's been beautiful. You can solve a 3-minute actual conversation on the phone. Sometimes can solve 15 different crazy emails going back and forth.
Yeah. For sure. So another thing that I thought was good in the article, it talked about look at your performance reviews, right? There's a lot of feedback in performance reviews, good and areas of opportunity, right? So we talked about a SWOT analysis. I think that was in the 3rd episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
We talked about swatting your skills and what does that look like. So the performance review is a great way to SWOT your skills and assess what are your areas of opportunities for growth, and then things that you really rock star at. So when you're looking at other opportunities, when you're talking with recruiters or the companies pursuing you, it can be a reference point. So you know how to overcome that. And it also can be a reference of telling your stories, because sometimes things are not listed there that you might have forgotten. So it helps you tell your story. It helps to talk about the seal the deal. Those things that are listed on your performance review can sometimes help you seal the deal. If it's nothing but from a confidence standpoint, but also telling the story of adding, okay, why should they pay you that 10% difference? Why should you get a signing bonus? If that's something that they need an explanation, or they're on the fence of whether or not you're a right fit for that role or a different role that you're even a better fit for, just being able to answer those behavioral questions, explain your expertise, it's really, really helpful. And then, one thing is always asking for feedback, right? Asking for feedback, which is a common thing we've talked about in every episode, the importance of feedback and how it can help you have aha moments and also help you with clarity, but also for your value, right? So, Dalan, you were sharing how you had your own feedback moment when you realized, okay, we didn't charge these people enough. So the feedback was that tip, right? Like, so you got to identify what the feedback is. The feedback might not always be that conversation. It could be the action. It could be that review that someone leaves you, or not, or someone's like reluctant to figure that out. I would say that's where you demonstrate courage and ask, well, what is the hesitation? Of course, respectfully, without an attitude or that chip on your shoulder, right? You don't want to have any of that. You don't want that to like brew up and get you good. But you really want to get the feedback and figure out what that is, because if you get crickets, I say when you have crickets, for the most part, in your gut, you have an idea why. You need to validate it.
Yeah.
I really do. I feel like you have an intuition of why, and then it's just confirming it to yourself. But sometimes, feedback can be just, I always say, we talked about this in one of the episodes, perception's reality. It can be just, it can stir you up, but you just got to get to a point to where you are okay with that, and you can move forward. So when you're looking at other jobs and things of that nature, when you're expanding your value, you can give an honest assessment, especially right now, people want you to be honest and real. The whole I am professional, this is who I am. Well, okay, we're all not stellar. Like, yes, we're high achievers, but you're just not stellar every day of the, it could be time management, it could be documentation. What is that? Are you able to apologize? Are you able to accept when you're wrong? Like, these are real things that people want to know. Can you handle in the workplace? And a lot of us are a work in progress for that on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and can you handle constructive criticism, and keep on rolling? For example, in my role, where I sit on a trading floor, so we're in a space where you're on a phone call with a client, and there's 5 other people, 6 other people that can hear exactly what you're saying, even if they're not participating in the call. So it's very common in our culture for somebody to say, "Hey, man, I was eavesdropping." No problem. I was eavesdropping on what you were saying. I love the way you broke that down for that client. Blah blah blah. I'm definitely stealing that. And it's also common for someone to say, "Hey, I was listening to that call, and when they asked that question, I thought you were going to do X, Y, Z. So one thing you might want to improve for the next one is that you definitely should take this route, A, B, C, D." And you have to know how to recognize. Of course, these people, it depends on your team if they're doing it in the right spirit, not trying to chop you down, but you got to be able to recognize when people are in an environment where they're really trying to help each person. Now, you can do it back to them, and nobody gets offended by the fact that they gave that feedback, because you realize, hey, man, I'm so glad you told me that, because I would rather you tell me that one time than for me to go on to 5, 6, 7 more interactions with clients or whatever it is and mess it up 5 more times. I'd rather get that gut punch one. I'm gonna say the gut punch. It's not that, it's constructive, but you know what I mean. I'd rather get that correction one time than have to sit there and watch me mess it up a whole bunch of times. So you really got to get in that environment. If you're the person who's pushing after excellence, I mean, I've seen this in the corporate environment. I've especially seen it in the music environment, where I've done gigs before. We walk off stage. Don't you ever do that again. And it never gets done again. And everybody's good. Like when I go do this, that don't play that. When I'm about to take a solo, when you see me do this, and boom, you learn and you improve, and everybody's good going forward. So just be willing to deal with people who are willing to constructively, in a positive way, sharpen you up really quick, and you have permission to do the same thing with them. See if you get a couple of friends or a couple of team members who are willing to do that.
I also feel like if you get the same message and it comes in different ways and you're not heeding to it, you're going to keep repeating that until you do get it. Like, I feel like it will keep surfacing, but when you're adding value or understanding, you're assessing the value of your skills, that's something to factor in. Because it could be that one thing that's holding you back or preventing you. I don't like holding back. It's preventing, the synonym, preventing you from getting to that next level that you want. That one thing that you're like, no, that's not me. It has something, there is some relevancy there. So what is that relevancy? And then another thing I like to do, especially now more than ever, is check out not only other job postings within your industry, but check out it based to other countries. Because like there's a lot of, countries working with each other, or you're based in the UK, the company's based in the UK, but they have a workforce in the United States. I would say just check out from a global perspective what are the job postings for the industry, to see what your competition is. Like, our competition is no longer singular. Our competition is a global workforce in different capacities, even if it is just US only or Europe even, but there are crossovers. So yes, there is some that are country specific, of course, but there's a lot of that are continuing to evolve to cross over beyond that. So assess yourself and how you ramp up, because a lot of certifications are global. They're not just specific to countries, depending upon what it is. That's a general statement. But how does it assess that? What is the value? Pull up that calculator where it gives you the value of the dollar versus the value of another country, and figure out what that is. So it just helps you get perspective on what that is. And you're like, I'm worth X amount of dollars. Okay, is that what are your guides? What are you basing that on? So take the time to research.
And I'd say don't be afraid to travel. I don't mean travel as a vacation. Don't be afraid to work abroad, even if it's just for a certain amount of time. I've seen so many. I come from a small country where, the workforce, especially in the corporate world, is built on people from all over the world coming there doing the same stuff that local people do, or local people are trained to do, for example, in a lot of cases. But just because they're from wherever, they're getting paid 3, 4, 5 times more than the person who's there. Because you come in, again, you're foreign, you're different. Oh my gosh, so and so, they got to be good. They're from London, they're from London or wherever it is. And really and truly, they're from some tiny random ass country town, in the UK somewhere with population smaller than the island, milking goats or whatever it is. But they came through a London airport, so they got to be better. So that perception thing, you can use that to your advantage when you're when you're outside. I know, soapbox, but you can use that perception to your advantage when you move abroad, in that you can now come in as the expert. There's a one quote I heard one time, that an expert is just a regular person saying the same thing away from home, saying the same stuff they would have said at home, but just because you're not at home. Oh yeah, oh, that's deep. You're an expert. We gotta pay her. The same stuff you would have said at home, and they'd have been like, whatever. So don't be afraid to take some time, at least, even if it's just a certain, a temporary stint abroad, and come back to the same company that you're working in right now or whatever you're doing, and you come back in as a more highly respected executive, and a more highly, they're willing to pay you more when you come back with an international experience a lot of times. So come out here in the jungle. Come on. You want to talk? Slide in my DMs. You want to talk about moving abroad and doing some crazy stuff in languages that you don't speak? Talk to me about it.
Dalan can tell you he has lived in different countries, learned languages overnight. So
I don't know about overnight.
He's like, I'm gonna get this, and I mean, it's been cool to see you evolve in that capacity. So
come on here and get this foreign bag.
It is all good. So my last share for this episode is I found this through a great article in Medium, and I'm going to put all this in the show notes for everyone so you can have that to digest and move on while you take heed to Dalan's advice of considering if you're able to, if your lifestyle affords you the opportunity to work abroad, you can think about that. But also, I want to share this price formula, right? And so this helps. These are 15 factors to remember when you're setting your price, and if to align with that. So this applies to the entrepreneurs, but I think some of it also applies to 9-to-5ers when it comes to having perspective of what you need. So let's start with the PN price. P reflects your planning, productivity, performance. For example, is your performance on the level of a novice, or is your performance on the level of an expert? Food for thought. So this is also applies to people when they're like, that's not my job. I'm just going to leave that right where it's at. And you don't feel like you don't have to do that. Now that's a very broad, and there's a lot of different factors that go into that. But I'm gonna make mine connect to the possibility that you might potentially, this is not for my high achievers, but this could be for people that are in their feelings about their job, or this can be for people that might, professionals that might feel like, that's not where they are. Are you going down the road of lazy versus the opportunity of developing as being intentional? Let's talk about keeping your stride, because when you're keeping your stride, there's ebbs and flows. Some days you're not feeling it. That's natural. We're human. We're people. You're not going to always feel like top notch. This is when intentionality kicks in development. And it's easy to say, that's not my job, but is this an opportunity for you to develop, which has nothing to do with your job? This has to do with the accountability you hold to yourself, right? And your own personal development. So are you going to make sure you don't go down the late? There's nothing wrong with resting, but please don't go down the path of lazy. That's important. Okay, so R. Okay, R is for I'm
sorry. Glory to God. Go ahead.
R is for recognition. So R reflects on your public recognition and your business relationship, industry, and or professional reputation. So that goes back to what we've spoken in other episodes about receipts. That goes back to what Dalan was referring to earlier. It's like, sharing your expertise, and what does that mean? And I I don't know where I shared this. I shared it someplace. I'm really on a roll of sharing content, but it was like we're talking about, I think it was when we were talking about branding. So I think that was episode 4. Was that last week? I think it was last week.
Maybe, yeah.
We're talking about me, and it's like, what are people saying about your brand? Is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
So this is a great opportunity to think about that when in your price. So what are people going to say when they're like, hey, I saw Michelle's rates, or I saw Kim or whoever, Tom. And it's like, and someone's like, well, yeah. What is the well, yeah part? What are people going to say about you? Are they going to say that you're easy to communicate with? Do they know your stuff? Did you challenge them? Did you give them another thing? My thing is, I'm always going for the aha moment. Did you have an aha moment? Did I share something with you that created an aha moment? Because if I did, that means I did my research right.
Right.
And because I don't know everything, but I study a lot. I listen. I'm listening to people. I'm reading a lot, and I'm always trying to connect the dots, because as a professional, I deem myself a professional development strategist. Strategy means you're always thinking of a different perspective. So what does that look like, and how do you accomplish that? So the other one for I reflects on influence, intelligence, and the impact with respect to results. So people pay for results. So where do your skills, what does your services or your product or services, not something that we talked about in the last episode, where do you fall in that, along with the money line, right?
Yeah.
So are you doing a product? Are you selling a product? Are you promoting a service, or are you the overseer? So I'm quoting Dalan. But then I'm also going to talk about the money line. So what does that mean for your skills when you're assessing your skills to figure out your price, be it you're an entrepreneur or you're in the workplace? How does all of that flow with you promoting your value, right? Are you going to be the median salary asker, the high percentile salary asker, or below medium? Where do you fall? Where do your skills put you in that? So yeah, you're a project manager, but where in that spectrum of high, medium, or below average? Because if you look at salary.com, there's that slope, right? So where do you fall on the slope? And your skills are what determines that you fall on the slope, not only because you interview well. You interview well because you're able to tell the story, right? You did your research about the company. You're able to tell the story. You're able to tell the story about your skills, and you understand what their end result is and how you're going to able to make that. But that comes down to influence and intelligence and your impact. What impact you're going to make, and how do your skills help them make the impact that they want, because it's a business. Mm-hmm. So the other one is the C, and that reflects on capability, competency, which we talked about. Competence builds confidence, right? And consistency. So that's really reiterating what we've already talked about, but the consistency of your product, program, and your service delivery. And that's something that's been a theme throughout the entire season. So that's just another friendly reminder. And then the last one in the price formula is E, and which is efficiency, effectiveness, and excellence of execution with respect to the finished product throughout the pre-sales, sales, and post-sales that supports the process. So what does that mean? Can you carry it all the way through to the end? Are you going to drop the ball? Translation, can you carry the ball all the way through the game and kick it to the goal? Make the basket, kick it to the goal, whichever it works for you. Can you do that? And if not, how soon can you course correct to be able to do that?
No, I think that's super. That price formula is super powerful, especially that last one about the follow through and the excellence that needs to flow through your entire process from pre-sales. Like before I even start work, my first interaction with you, whether it's your website, your social media, whatever it is, but before we even really make contact, was I feeling the excellence right through to after I'm done working with you. If there's something that goes wrong, is there a follow-up thing that needs to happen? Is there what's the service line agreement that goes on with this? Is there like a 1-year check-in that happens afterwards? Like, am I still gonna be feeling that excellence even after I'm done the main chunk of work with you? I think that's the thing that separates the people who are getting paid pennies versus the people who are getting paid high value amounts of what they provide.
Oh, for sure. Because if you're sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's good stuff. I'm liking it.
Yeah. So if I perceive if you can handle E with the high level of excellence of the high achiever that you are, the rest of the formula is effortless because it takes care of itself. It
Yeah.
remedies itself if there's a swoop or a dip. It course corrects because at some point you have figured out your process of looping around to addressing every aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of good stuff that was shared here tonight. And if I were to sum it all up, I think one of the overarching takeaways we want people to walk away from this session with is that yes, you can charge more. You are worth a lot, and you can push that even more. You have the ability to increase your value, but that is going to take work. This is not just a psychological you need to feel more or get with your confidence or whatever. Yes, that's part of it, but you actually need to make sure that you are doing the things that you need to do to increase that value. You're doing the things that you need to do to be able to deliver that value seamlessly from before start to after finish, if that makes sense, from pre-sales straight through to the different things that you're trying to do, and learn how to communicate that and move that way, whether you're talking about in a 9-to-5 job situation, and especially if you're thinking about quitting that job and you want to be an entrepreneur, you better figure this out quickly. In the 9-to-5 world, it might be a little bit more forgiving. They don't like the way you do this and that other, but you've been with the company a long time. Your severance pay is going to be too much for the company right now, so that it's too expensive to fire you, so they put up with some of your BS. But out here in the jungle, if you want to go entrepreneur, people don't have any reason to stick with you. They will switch to somebody else better in a heartbeat. Right. So if you're thinking about quitting that job and you're frustrated, this and that other, make sure you really have it together, or you're prepared to really get it together super fast if you're thinking about coming out to the real jungle and getting this stuff done. But the fact there is that we're giving you a lot of resources and tools that you can use to make it happen. So I hope you take this into the week, take this into the month, the year, whatever it is. Go out there, make some stuff happen. From my desk here in Panama City, Panama, where we actually speak Spanish, this is Dalan Vanterpool from this side of Money and Skills with Dalan and Michele, wishing you a powerful week.
Awesome. And I just want to say, in regards to the pre-sale to the support process, your pre-sales is getting the call to interview. Your sales is the interview, and your post-sales is delivering on what you said you would do when you signed the offer letter, which brings to mind George McPherson's Don't Be Paper, which is part of the Keep Your Stride narrative. Like, make sure no matter whatever you're saying, whatever you're promoting, whatever you're educating, that you can deliver on that. So you can sign on the dotted line in every capacity that you can do this, but you have your receipts because you shared it, but make sure that beyond sharing it, you really can do it. So yeah, that's important. So I hope that some of the things that we share with you tonight will help you assess your skills, make sure that you are understanding the value that you bring to the table if you're an entrepreneur or you're 9-to-5. Thanks so much for joining us or catching the replay. We have one more episode, and then the season's a wrap.
I'm excited and sad and excited. It's going to be good. Anyway, join us for coffee and donuts in the comments and the DMs. We'll be out there hanging out. We'll see y'all next night. Same bat time, same bat place.
Yep. Have a great week. Thanks so much, everyone.
Peace.